Hi, good afternoon, everybody. This is Lisa Conley at Child Care Resources with the Kaleidoscope Plan Learn program, and thank you for joining us this afternoon for this webinar about the quality assurance, some of the quality assurance practices and activities that we do with Kaleidoscope Plan Learn. Today we'll be talking about a few different pieces of that, and I want you to be able to ask your questions and share some of your ideas or tips to other folks that are joining in. So I would say go ahead, and I am going, can you unmute all yourselves? Or let me see. Oh, nope. Actually, go ahead and do whatever you're doing there. It's fine. And if you have a question, you can click the little hand icon to raise your hand. That's one way to ask the question. The other is to type a question in the question box. So feel free to use those methods, and I'll do what I can to get to your questions. Feel free to ask them as we go along, and then I'll also pause a couple of different times too, so that you can take a moment and digest the information and get your questions out. So we will start here in just a minute. So today we're going to talk about the caregiver survey, the quality self-assessment, as well as, oops, I'm going to switch this. Okay, now are you seeing the right thing? Okay, good. Good, thank you. Having difficulty seeing which screen I was showing to you. So now you should be able to see the slides. So we'll talk about the caregiver surveys for 2017 and the quality self-assessment, as well as the monthly attendance reports. And again, feel free to ask questions, offer tips and suggestions, lessons you've learned about how to do these activities in a way that works for you and your group. And we'll just go from there. Understand too that we will be sending you an email in the next couple of weeks that will include all of the forms and the instructions that go along with those forms. So you'll have those in your email inbox sometime in the next, I think probably within the next 2 weeks. We're still waiting for some information and some of the documents to come back from the translators. And just to help you with some keeping your attention and making this a little bit more interesting for you, I've included some photographs of ideas for you that you could use in your Kaleidoscope Play and Learn group. And these are things that I just picked off of our Pinterest page too. So you'll see this first one here is about using paint chips of different colors to go out on a kind of a scavenger hunt outside to look for and match colors. All right. So why do we do quality assurance? A lot of it is just about making ourselves accountable for the goals that we set out to achieve when we're working with families, with young children, and we want to be able to track and say that, yes, we are indeed working on these goals, or we're working towards these goals, and we are achieving them. We also can glean from this information about ideas for ways that we can improve the program to better support families and to give them a better experience at Kaleidoscope Play and Learn. There's also a piece for us too about ensuring that the groups that are operating across the state and other parts of the country are also maintaining some fidelity to the Kaleidoscope Play and Learn model. So it's a way for all of us to measure that we're indeed conducting the program in the way that it's intended to, and we're achieving the outcomes and goals that we want it to. And then last but certainly not least is that when we go through these processes, we gather a lot of information that shows the positive work that we are doing and really how effective Kaleidoscope Play and Learn is in helping families get their children ready for school and life. And when we have this evidence and real real evidence to show other folks that might be interested in this program, our funders, our boards of directors, policymakers, and others that have an interest in making sure that children are ready for school. So use these as some bragging rights. So the first part we're going to go over today is the survey, and I just want to do a quick overview of what the process and timeline is for 2017. This is very similar to what happened last year or the last couple of years really, so if you've been with us for that long, then you'll be familiar with these steps. So the first steps will be for you to figure out a time frame, a 2-week period in which you want to collect your surveys, and let Wisteria know. Wisteria is now with us. She's our administrative specialist, and she'll be working a lot behind the scenes on the surveys, as well as other things. You've probably gotten to know her already. And we'll have an official survey collection time of the month of May. However, if May doesn't work well for you or your groups, then you can also collect surveys any time up to the end of September. So really our broad window is May 1st through the 31st, or through September 30th, excuse me, in which you can choose that consecutive 2-week period. And we'll talk about how to choose that 2-week period in just a moment. Once you have chosen that time, that 2-week time, you go ahead and collect those surveys in your groups, and then you send them back to us here at Child Care Resources, to Wisteria. You can mail them, you can email them, or you can fax them, whatever works best for you. And the very last day for you to be able to turn in surveys is October 13th. So this will give us adequate time to do what we need to do with data entry and quality checks and working with ORS Impact, who does the analysis and produces the year-end report for us. So those reports, the big I should say 2017 evaluation report will be available to everybody sometime the first part of January of 2018. As well, we'll send each of your organizations the data and results from your groups. So sometime around the beginning of 2018, you'll be seeing those. If for some reason you need the information for your group sooner than that, let us know. We can often produce those reports relatively quickly once we get the data entered. So how and when to collect the survey? So again, choose that 2-week period, 2 consecutive weeks. And the reason we do 2 weeks is that so on the second week, you can get surveys from anybody who might have missed that first week when you passed it out. So it gives you another chance to get a survey from somebody who might have been absent. Choose those 2 weeks when you believe that you'll have a lot of participants. Because the more surveys we collect, the better the data is, the more reliable it is. And also think about when your group is ready for this. Think about things like, does your group have sort of seasonal patterns? Do you take a break during the summer? If so, you might want to go ahead and do the surveys before your group breaks. Do you see new people coming in different times or like in the beginning of the fall or over the summer? Think about that timing. And if you have new groups that you'll be passing the surveys out, think about, has your group had time to really gel? Do you feel like it's sort of operating as a group yet? As you all know, those of you who have started new groups, it sometimes takes a while for that group feeling to set in. So you've got that wide window in which to choose. So whatever works best for your group, choose those 2 weeks. And then when it comes to the time in which you pass out the surveys in a particular group meeting, plan for that to be during a time when your participants can really focus on the surveys. We found it's best to pass the surveys out and give people a chance to fill them out right then and there, as opposed to sending them home, because we have a much better collection rate when people have the opportunity to just fill it out right there when they're in the group and then leave them before they go home. So you might think about when during your usual group routine might there be a great time for people to have a few moments to sit down and quietly fill this out. Could be that if you have a snack time when the children are sort of occupied, you might do that, have the surveys done then, or for some groups it might be during the free play time when participants can take turns filling out their surveys, and then others are playing with the children and sort of minding the children as well. So have your supplies ready, bring the forms, pens. If you feel like you need extra staff or somebody else to help out in giving instructions or playing with the children while the adults are occupied with the surveys, feel free to do that. And then I think it's really helpful to also bring a copy of the last year's report so that you can share with the participants. This is what happens to all of these surveys that you're filling out for us right now. It gets compiled, your survey gets compiled with hundreds of others from across the state, and this is the kind of information that we're gathering from it. For some people, that's really important to understand how participating in the survey really contributes to that. And they may also be curious, what are the results? What are we hoping will happen because of our program? You can certainly assist the participants to fill out the form. We will have forms in 5 different languages, the same languages as last year. But we also understand that there are participants that may need assistance in reading the form in whatever language works for them, or you might have a participant who speaks a language that is not available, or where the survey is not available in that language. You can do oral translations for those folks. You can read the questions. You feel free to answer any questions about the meaning behind some of the questions on there. We don't necessarily want you to guide them to answer, to lead them to answering in a specific way, but if they have trouble understanding or reading, certainly feel free to do that. And that can also be a role that participants can play as well to help each other. So there is a script in the instructions, which you'll receive in that email in a couple of weeks. You can read that, but I would say just kind of go through it before the group and pull out the points that you think are going to be essential for your participants to understand. So you can read it or just use your own words, whatever works best for you. I'd say introduce the survey, and maybe even a couple weeks in advance say we'll be doing surveys next week, and this is why we're doing it. We're doing it to evaluate the program. We're not doing it to evaluate you as caregivers or your children or even me as the facilitator. I think it's really important to explain what we're actually evaluating, because we don't want people to feel like we are testing them or their children or even you, because that can skew people's ratings one way or the other. And we want them to be able to give honest answers and to understand that also that this is completely voluntary on their part. We really encourage them to complete the surveys, but if they choose not to, that's no worries for them. They're certainly always welcome to be at the group. And if they do choose to do it, we're very grateful, because it does give us the kind of feedback we need to make sure that the program is working well. And again, reassure them that their answers are confidential. We don't know who they are, and we're not tracking their names with their surveys. And in fact, on our forms, we don't ask for names. I know that some groups have adapted the form to collect names because of evaluations that you're having to do for your groups. And if that's the case, just reassure them that you'll be blacking out their names when you send the forms to us, so we don't know who they are, and we won't be able to track them. So again, hopefully that will help also for folks that are kind of concerned about how and where this information is being used. So once you've collected the surveys in your group, go ahead and compile them, and if you're mailing them to us, go ahead and make a copy of them to keep for yourselves, just in case something gets lost in the U.S. mail. And it has happened once. Unfortunately, it happened with a rather large batch of surveys, about 100 surveys, and it was very disappointing for everybody because there was a lot of effort put into people filling that out. So just make a copy for yourselves, just in case. There's a cover sheet that you'll fill out as well that that will come in that email, and fill that out. And if you mail, fax, or scan and email the surveys to us, please include that cover sheet because it asks for information about the dates that you collected the surveys, and we need to know that information later on because we'll look at how many people attended during the month that you collected surveys, so that we can track response rates. And it'll also ask you the name of your organization and the contact person, and then the number of surveys that you're sending along to us. So that way we can do a double check again once we receive them to make sure that we received all the surveys that you sent us. So if you're choosing to use the month of May as your survey collection time, then if you can, we'd love to have your surveys by June 15th. That way, then we get started on our work here in doing some data entry and tracking and making sure everybody's sort of on the track to getting the surveys completed, or again at October 13th at the very latest. So what happens to the surveys after we receive them is that we do some data entry here where we actually enter every single paper survey into, we use SurveyMonkey, and last year we had almost 950, I think 949 paper surveys, which was amazing. It was like a brand new record of Kaleidoscope Play and Learn surveys. So there's a lot of data entry that's happening, and we do some quality checks on that data entry, and sometimes some deliberation about what did the participant mean when they wrote that, selected 2 boxes, things like that. So we do some work on that, and then once all the data is entered and we've received all the surveys, they're ready to go, then ORS Impact, which is an evaluation consultant organization, does the analysis for us, and then they create that really nice looking report that comes out at the end of the year. And then we, again, will use the information that we entered into SurveyMonkey and then send you your results in a couple of different formats that you can use in different ways. So you'll be able to compare and contrast your results with what happened statewide. And if you've been doing Kaleidoscope Play and Learn groups for several years, I would invite you to go ahead and compare and contrast your results over the years too, to see how outcomes might have changed, and you can learn a lot from that about which areas of the program you might want to beef up a little bit, which ones you might want to say, yep, we're completely where we should be on this. So that's really important work for you to do. So the surveys this year are, again, available English, Chinese, traditional Chinese, Somali, Spanish, and Vietnamese. And I will show you a form. Let's see. The English form is coming here. And I'll just do a quick overview of the form for folks that are not familiar with it yet. And then I'll also highlight some areas that we have changed. We've made just a few little changes from last year. So you'll want to make sure that you've got the 2017 version, and you see highlighted here 2017 at the top there and then at the bottom. So double check before you start making multiple copies to hand out that you've got the 2017 version. And then the first section asks for some questions about the people that are attending. So the first question asks about who the adult is bringing, who the caregiver or the parent is bringing, and they can check as many of these boxes as apply to their situation. Number 2 is about listing the ages of the children they bring to Play and Learn. And we try to guide them to use whole years. If they use half years or decimal points, we'll figure it out. And this can be sometimes confusing for some folks. So say they're bringing 2 two-year-olds, then they can write 2 and 2 twice. So they write 2 twice so that we can understand there are 2 two-year-olds. And question number 3 asks about how many times, an estimated number of times that they've participated in a Play and Learn group. And this could be all of the Play and Learn groups they've attended, maybe not just yours, but maybe they go to a couple other ones in the neighborhood as well. And so if they've attended fewer than 3 times, then they will skip some of these questions that come up that have to do with outcomes, and they'll go back to some questions on the flip side of the survey. So part of the reason there is that we figure that it takes a couple of times for when somebody attends to really start to see the outcome results that we're tracking. And sometimes there is a question that comes up from participants who do go to several different groups a week. We want them to think about the total number of times that they've attended for all of the groups they've attended. If they've already completed the survey in another group in 2017, they don't need to complete it again. In fact, it's probably better that they don't, so that we don't have inadvertently duplicate information about the same people. So question number 4 is actually a series of questions that we're asking the parent or caregiver to think about how these different items A through N have changed since they started participating and as a result of their participation in Play and Learn. So there are some questions about their increases in knowledge about child development. So really A through D are about changes in their knowledge. Questions E through K have to do about changes in their behaviors, some of the behaviors that we're hoping that they do a lot, so they're talking more often about numbers, shapes, and sizes. They're giving their kids more opportunities to learn those kinds of things. And then items L through N are about changes in their social support network. And you'll see it's this kind of classic Likert scale, they call it, where they're thinking about how has this changed for me? Maybe it's about the same. Maybe there's really no change since, and because I come to Kaleidoscope Play and Learn group, I've had a little bit of change in this area, or I've had a lot more change in this area. And again, this is one place where we really want folks to feel like they can be honest with us about it. And these are really some of the essential outcomes that we're hoping will happen as a result of their participation, but it may not always be the case. So we want them to feel free that it reflects their experience. So on page 2, there are a couple of questions that require them to write some answers. The first one, question 5, has to do about things that the caregiver or the parent does differently with the child in their care. And then number 6 is more about the child. What are some of the skills that they've noticed that the child has gained because of their participation? And sometimes these questions can be a little bit confusing to caregivers. We notice that when we're doing the data entry, that they might think about 2 or 3 things in question 5, 2 or 3 things that the child does differently, but this is really about the caregiver or parent who's filling out the form. What do they, as adults caring for young children, do differently? So when you're introducing the survey to folks, you might want to highlight that if you feel this could be confusing to the participants in your group. And then the last set of questions, 7 through 12, are more about demographic information. And again, these are all optional, but it is really helpful for us to understand who's participating in Kaleidoscope Play and Learn. This is the only time that we actually collect this information, so it does give us a bit of a picture of the the group of participants overall throughout the state that are involved. And a couple of changes that we've made, highlighted in yellow again. Number 7, we changed from I am female, male, and now we have a third option and have reworded it to read I identify as female, male, or genderqueer or non-binary. Just to give an option for the folks that don't identify as either female or male or all of the above or however they might, but they don't feel comfortable checking one or the other female or male box. And if there's questions, this is not a question about people's sexuality. You know, are they gay or straight? It's not about that. It's even not about are they transgender? You know, somebody who might have been identified as female on their birth certificate, but now identify as male. We're not interested in necessarily that, but we do want to give this option here, the third option, genderqueer or non-binary, for folks again who feel like they don't neatly fit into one of those boxes. And I'm guessing that the people that would choose genderqueer or non-binary will know what that means and identify with it. And just a note about this, we are not really necessarily interested in tracking the number of people who identify as genderqueer or non-binary. We really are doing this as a way of being inclusive in the survey. So again, it's not so much a matter of tracking and the results that we'll get from it. It's more about inviting people and having them feel like they have an option that works for them on this survey, and just in that inclusive spirit that comes from our guidelines. Then question 8 is about racial, ethnic identification, and this one folks can choose as many as they want. Number 9 is about the language they use most often at home, the adults use most often at home, and we prefer that they check just one of these. I know that we have a lot of families that attend that it's hard for them to decide that there is a language that is most often used, because there might be a couple of languages that are used just about equally. So we do have an option for them to say 2 or more languages spoken equally at home, and then another option here as other, because there's no way we've identified all of the languages of the people that attend here, so there can do that. Number 10, we just changed the income amounts to reflect the 2017 federal poverty level. So I believe this is at 200% of federal poverty level. And then number 12, we added as a new question uh, that is about family, friend, and neighbor caregivers who receive payment for caring for young children from DSHS or otherwise known as Working Connections or otherwise known as WCCC. The folks, again, who are enrolled in this program will be familiar with those, and they will probably identify with one of those three kind of options for naming it. There, just for background for you all, there for children whose families qualify for Working Connections childcare subsidies. Um, those subsidies can be used to pay for care given by a family, friend, or neighbor caregiver. And there's lots of interesting rules and regulations around it. And this is not a very big subsidy, but we would like to start to understand if some of the folks that are attending Kaleidoscope Play and Learn groups actually are receiving those subsidies. You might have a question from a parent that says, yeah, I do receive these subsidies, but I use it to pay for a licensed family child care home or a child care center. And for those folks, they can just put no for that because we're looking for the family, friend, and neighbor caregivers. So the grandmas, the aunties, the uncles, the good family friends that are caring for just that family's children. So that's a lot of information there just in the survey. Let me get back here. Any questions? Let's try to see any questions. I've seen a couple of questions. Oops. There's a question, Lisa, you said if caregivers attend more than one Play and Learn, they only need to fill out once. Would it be okay if we ask them to fill out the survey, as I know the data in the survey may also use as the number of attendance and demographic information for the organization? You know, for our purposes, it's better not to send that along. However, you might want to keep that survey and think about adding the information that in it to the results that we send to you. You'll be able to do that in one of the formats that we send the results to you. And so that you can get a better view, a more accurate view for your particular group about who's attending and what their outcomes were. But for the overall look at Kaleidoscope Play and Learn statewide, it's best for us not to have that information or to duplicate it by having it twice in our system. And you know, in terms of attendance, the attendance information, like the number of people that are actually attending, we get better and more accurate information from those monthly attendance reports that you all send to us than we do from the surveys, since the surveys are just done in a two-week period. The demographic information really is helpful, like you say in your question, Elise. But otherwise, as you understand, for us, that person would be counted twice. And if we had a lot of those coming in, then it would really affect the reliability of the information that we're getting across the whole state. So yes, thank you for that question. But again, if you want to track it on your end, please do so, because it probably is better for you to do that. Any other questions? Scanning. Let's see. Sorry, I've changed the format a little bit on the go-to thing here, so I'm trying to read all your questions, access them. Okay, so I'll pause again in a few moments, and if you've got a question, go ahead and answer or type them in that question box, and then also, raise your hand as well too. So why do the surveys? Well, you'll get the data back from your own group so you can compare to overall results. You can share and brag about your results and really do. I mean, the results are very, very compelling and they're very, very positive year to year. So it's nothing to hide. And it's definitely a way for caregivers and parents to share their feedback about their experiences in the group. So you'll learn a bit about your group as well from the surveys. And then again, a bigger data set, the more surveys we have, the more reliable and the more compelling it is when we tell the story to funders. So again, your next steps are choose your 2-week period and let Wisteria know when that's going to be, anytime from May 1 to September 30th. Once we email out all the forms and the instructions, get familiar with the form, the instructions, the script, and call or email Wisteria if you have any questions. So we want to make sure that you feel prepared and confident in being able to pass these out and collect them and answer any questions that folks might have. So again, questions. I'm seeing Jean Park. Jean, I'm going to try to unmute you here and, oops. Jean, are you there?
Yes, hi.
Hi, yeah, you have a question.
I wanted to know about the languages available, and you had said Somali is available. I wanted to know if we have Amharic or Oromo.
No, we don't have Amharic or Oromo, but yes, Spanish, Somali, traditional Chinese, Vietnamese, and English. Those are the ones we have
That's it.
this year. Yeah.
Okay.
But it's really useful, that'll be good feedback for us. So for everybody on this webinar, if you want to keep a list of the languages that you felt would have been helpful to have this year, keep that list and send it to us, and then we can get some translations done for next year.
I will. I think Amharic is the most desired because I have several people who speak Amharic.
Okay, great. Thanks, John.
Thanks.
Let's see, other questions? Great. So it is time for a door prize. So we've got some really great children's books, and we'll send one out we'll have 3 lucky winners this afternoon. And Hodan Bulali from White Center Community Development Association. Hey, Hodan, you're going to get a book in the mail. Wisteria or somebody will contact you for your mailing address, and we'll send you a nice children's book that you can share in your group. So thanks for being with us, Hodan. So the next piece is talking about the quality self-assessment, and this is something that you will do once a year for all the facilitators in your organization. And it is a way for you to double check that you are conducting the group within the parameters of the Kaleidoscope Plan Learn guidelines. And it uses a standardized form. So before we get to the form, I just want to give you a little bit of background about how you can do the quality self-assessment. We really recommend that you choose somebody other than yourself, if you're the facilitator, to come in and observe the group and to complete the form. That person could be a coworker, it could be a manager or supervisor, it could be a facilitator from another group and another organization. Or, if you happen to be in King County, it could be one of us too. We'd be happy to come out. So the observer will visit your group. They'll watch what happens. They'll talk with you, and together you can sit down and complete it and talk about what the observer noticed, and you can talk together about what you feel like is going well. And if there were any ideas or thoughts about where you might need to make improvements or where you wanted to make improvements. Sometimes the improvements aren't always needed. You just want to try something differently. That's a great time to really sit down with somebody and think it through what you want to do. And then if there are some areas that do need improvement or you do want to make some adjustments, build upon the good work you're already doing, then you can make a plan for that. Include in that plan if you feel like you need more information about a particular aspect of Kaleidoscope Play and Learn, please feel free to contact us. We can provide some guidance and some ideas about that, or reach out to other facilitators who might have some great tips for you as well. And then just keep a copy of that self-assessment and go back every once in a while and look at what your plan was and note your progress. So pay attention to the good work you're doing and give yourself some credit for it too. So you'll complete the survey, or not the survey, the quality self-assessment once a year for each facilitator. And if a facilitator facilitates multiple groups, you don't need to complete a form, a self-assessment for each and every group. You just need to complete it once. So some guidance, if you are a facilitator that does have several groups a week, choose one that you feel is kind of typical for that collection of groups, one that you feel like this is pretty representative of me as a facilitator and this group as a group and how it operates. And again, for the timing of this, we have that window, and we encourage you to use that window of from now or May 1st through the end of September. And we ask that you send in the quality self-assessments, copies of them, to us with your surveys. It seems to be a great way for organizations and folks to be able to track when to do this. It's just go ahead and do them kind of concurrent with your surveys. So you're kind of in a quality assurance state of mind. So again, send them in with your surveys. If you need more time to complete by September 30th, and send us a copy for each of those facilitators. And let me draw up the form for you just to refresh your memory. And we won't go over the form. It's pretty long. It should be fairly straightforward, but it follows the Kaleidoscope Play and Learn guidelines almost item for item. So if you were to drag out your well-used copy of the guidelines, you'd see that all of these items are included in those. And it gives you a chance to say, yes, we're meeting this guideline, we're practicing this, or we're not quite there yet, we're working towards it. You can give some examples of what you're doing to fulfill this essential activity, or if you're working towards it, how and why it's not being fully met. And sometimes the how and why might be because the group is still forming, it might be a brand new group, and you're still kind of working towards pieces of this. And that's good information for us to know. And in the last column, list any changes that you want to make. If you feel like you need to really improve this area, think about and jot down some ideas for improving that, or if you got a brilliant idea of something that you really want to try, put that down there too. And again, we're not out there necessarily assessing you as a facilitator with this. This is a great way for you to assess your own performance as a facilitator, but what we do when we collect them and look at them kind of across the state, we're looking for trends. so that it helps us give us information about where you facilitators seem to be doing really, really well, and where are they having some more challenges. And in those areas where they're having more challenges, are there some things that we here at Kaleidoscope Play and Learn Central could do to support you? So would it help to have more training, or would it help for us to be able to come out and visit, or are there some tools or materials or resources that we can forward to you that would help you accomplish your goals? So that's what we're looking at. Um, Obviously, if we saw a self-assessment that was working towards in almost every category, we'll probably give you a call or email and just check in and say, hey, is there something we can do to help out here? But really, again, this is more looking at trends. And as you're going through the process, do think about feedback you can give to us about if you feel it would be really helpful to have more information or training on certain aspects of the program, or in certain areas of child development, or working with families and caregivers. Really think about what feedback you can give to us, because we really do base a lot of what we do on the feedback we receive from you and what we observe too. So that's the quality self-assessment. And again, you'll get this in the email along with instructions on how to fill it out. And there's a lot of flexibility in the way it gets filled out, who participates in it, and really choose the way that is going to work the best for you within the structure of your organization, and that's going to help support you and your group. So let's see. Oops, here we go. So why do the self-assessments? We talked about a lot of this. You get to pause and take a moment to notice what's going really well in your group, and then also to think about what do you want to build on to make the group a better experience for families. And then again, you can let your funders, your board, your staff, families know that you are regularly evaluating the program in more than just one way, that you're looking at it through surveys as well as this quality self-assessment, and that's part of being an affiliate with Kaleidoscope Play and Learn, and that we're all in this together and practicing these types of activities, so that we're maintaining fidelity. So questions, looks like a couple more questions coming in. Let's see, Ashley, I'm going to go ahead and unmute you. So hi, Ashley.
Hi.
Hi. Yeah, have you got a question?
Yeah. So I'm going to backtrack a little bit to the surveys for a second. So say you're taking a break during the summer. Would you have to do like two separate surveys, like one for the one time period and then after your break do another one?
No, just once a year is all.
Okay.
Yeah, and for the surveys, we've pretty much follow the calendar year, so once during a calendar year.
Okay.
And in your situation, I think if you're taking a break for the summer, doing it before you take the break might be the best, because I'm guessing that people kind of fall off and yeah.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you bet. Great. So let's see, other questions. Got Ashley, Elise. Just scanning the list here, seeing if other questions. Okay. Well, feel free to keep raising your hands and typing in the question box too. And it's time for another door prize book. So this one goes out to Kay Marshall. in Mount Baker School District. So hey, Kay, thanks for attending. We'll send out a book to you. All right, so we're nearing the end of this with the monthly attendance report, and a lot of you are probably already familiar with this report that you send to us or to your local child care or aware organization. And we use this as a way to track the number of people participating, and it gives us unduplicated numbers. That means that we only count one person as one person for whatever time period. So for you in filling out the report, it's about if one person attended 5 times during that month, then you only count them once. And then it also gives us a chance to understand their relationship to the children that are attending. So they might be family, friend, and neighbor caregivers. And again, that's anybody who's bringing a child other than their own. Hopefully they're not brining the child, as it says on the slide. Sorry about that. I don't know. I suppose if they're an evil witch that lives in the forest, they might be brining the child, but then you call CPS, please. So, but okay, that was a very unfortunate typo. But if they are, like, again, a grandparent, an aunt or uncle, a good family friend, a cousin, an older sibling that's bringing the child, you categorize them as family friend or neighbor caregiver. If they are a licensed child care provider, we do have some that come with children once in a while to groups, or a therapist, like occupational therapists, that they will sometimes attend with children that have special needs. Don't count them there. There's another spot to count them. It also looks at the category of parents. Are they the child's mother or father? And then both is anybody who's bringing their child, own child, and anybody else's. So let's look at the form here. Might be the easiest way to do this. So the form, pretty straightforward. You put your organization name there just so we know who it's from once it gets to our office here. And again, count the number of family, friend, and neighbor caregivers that attended, who are new that month or are returning from a previous month. So if they started brand new, they would go in that first box there. And again, if they attended more than once, just count them as one person for this report. And then you have the space to count, put in the number of total parents that attended, both new and returning. And then if there are people that are both, that they are parents who brought somebody else's child, then you could count them in this both category. Don't put them in family, friend, and neighbor caregivers or parents. You can count them in this both category. This is kind of interesting to see the numbers of adults that are serving the purpose of both parents and caregiver in the groups. So we'd like to have that as well. And then count the number of children ages birth to 6 years old. So sort of the target age group of Kaleidoscope Play and Learn, 6 years old, giving you a little leeway for those children that haven't quite started kindergarten yet. And then if there's somebody else that you're not quite sure how to classify, so again, if it's like a licensed family child care provider or a therapist or somebody, just a special guest that is coming to observe your group, you can fill that out there. You don't need to, but if for some reason you feel like, I'm not exactly sure, should I count them or where do they fit in any of these boxes, you can just put them in here and we'll figure it out. And then you can total for each of these columns for new and returning. Also, as a reminder too, if you have any groups or changes to your group schedules or locations, you can note them here on the form as well. And so you can let us know if there were any new groups that started this month, if there were changes or groups that stopped meeting, and then any other changes that in your group's schedules. And that way we will update the group directory that is online on our webpage. And then Wisteria is available to answer questions and anytime, even if you're sending this report to a child care aware office other than us, you're somewhere out in other part of Washington State, you feel free, you can call us with questions about these forms too. So, all right. So any other questions? Oh, I should say why we do the attendance. I mean, the attendance is really, it's pretty simple. We just want to know the numbers of people that are attending Kaleidoscope Play and Learn groups across the state. It gives us a really great idea of just how many people are participating. And this is, especially when we put it together with the outcomes evaluation results, we can say that 80% of about 4,500 people that attended, we expect 85% achieved this outcome of reading more often with their children at home, for instance. And it's very powerful, especially when we look at this collectively across all of the groups in Washington State. We are really starting to have, an impact with numbers. I think last year we had about 4,500 attending, and I know that's an undercount because we didn't hear back from all of the groups. So that's really good information for us to be able to say, hey, over here, we're doing really good work. And we're reaching lots of folks. So questions, tips, ideas. No? So if there aren't any other questions, again, you can always give us a call, email us. Jennifer Duval and Wisteria Oliver are going to be working on the surveys. Wisteria will probably be your point person for most things having to do with surveys, in terms of getting forms and sending them to her, as well as the attendance and the quality self-assessments. But Jennifer is here as well as a resource. I am too. So you'll be hearing from either of the three of us soon, and you can always call on us if you have questions or ideas or suggestions. And we have one more children's book to give away, and that one is going to Leticia Rivera in Quincy with Catholic Charities Housing Services. So congratulations, Leticia. So, oh, good. We had some geographic equity in our door prize winners. So somebody from the Seattle area, somebody from up in Northwest Washington, somebody in Central Washington. So that's great. Very representative of where our groups are from. So if there aren't any other questions or comments, ideas, suggestions, we'll say goodbye for now. And thank you for all that you're doing, not only in providing great Kaleidoscope Play and Learn groups, but also participating in these quality assurance practices and data collection and all of that. It does help, and especially when everybody's participating as a collective, it really is powerful. So thank you, and feel free to give us a call or send an email with any questions. All right. Thanks, folks. Goodbye.